All right, get ready for this one. We're going to connect a modern cult classic with some ancient scripture, and in doing so, we're going to uncover a pretty radical philosophy, one that's been hiding in plain sight this whole time.
Okay, so let's just dive right in. I mean, on the surface, this connection seems impossible, right? You've got the story about anarchic self-destruction on one hand, and then a cornerstone of spiritual teaching on the other. But what if they're both pointing to the exact same truth? A truth about our modern lives?
And boom, there it is. That's the core idea right there. Both Fight Club and the story of the Eye of the Needle, they make this really startling claim that all the things we think give us security, they're actually spiritual cages. And to be truly free, you gotta tear them down. So let's break down how they both make this case.
Okay, first up, let's step into the world of Chuck Palahniuk's Fight Club. And it's not just about guys punching each other in a basement. No, it's a full-blown philosophy, and it's all centered on a very, very particular kind of liberation. So let's talk about Tyler Durden. He's not just some chaotic agent of mayhem. In the story, he's actually framed as a kind of philosophical guide, a liberator. And his core belief is that our stuff, our IKEA furniture, our designer clothes, all of it has trapped our spirits. So what's his solution? Simple. Just destroy it all.
And pay attention to the language here. The destruction isn't just pointless vandalism. It's framed as a philosophical reboot. Think about that. By losing everything, the narrator's entire worldview is forcibly realigned. It makes him shift his focus away from all the material junk and towards something, deeper.
So, according to Tyler, this path to freedom, it's basically a three-step process. Step 1, obliterate all your external attachments. Get rid of the stuff. Step 2, this forces you to completely realign your values. And finally, step 3, once all that noise from consumerism is gone, that's when you can uncover your true core spirit. And this right here, this is probably the book's most radical idea. I mean, forget all that self-improvement, positive thinking stuff. Tyler Durden argues that self-destruction is the answer. That it's only by hitting absolute rock bottom, by completely blowing up your life, that you can finally strip away that fake consumerist identity and find what's real underneath, your pure essential being. Okay, so now we're going to do a hard pivot. Let's jump from there to a seemingly opposite source, the Bible. We're going to deconstruct one of its most famous metaphors, and you're going to see how this exact same idea of stripping away shows up in ancient wisdom. Yeah, you've almost definitely heard this verse before. And at first glance, it sounds pretty simple, right? It sounds like a straight-up condemnation of wealth. But one of the common historical interpretations reveals something much more nuanced, a much more practical process. So, according to this interpretation, the eye of the needle wasn't talking about a sewing needle at all. It was a real physical place. Imagine this, a small, human-sized gate built into the massive main gates of Jerusalem. It was a gate that pedestrians would use after the big gates were locked up for the night. Now, if a merchant showed up late with his camel, he couldn't just stroll on through that tiny gate. No way. The very first thing he had to do was unload everything. I'm talking every single bag, every piece of cargo, all the material wealth that camel was carrying had to come off. It had to be completely stripped. But get this, even after being stripped of all its baggage, the camel was still too big to just walk through. So the second step required this incredible act of humility. The massive animal literally had to get down on its knees and crawl through that tiny opening. So you see, the metaphor isn't really saying money itself is evil. It's about the baggage of wealth. It's about how that wealth creates this false sense of security, like an ego-driven shield. And that shield is what blocks a person from becoming humble, from having to rely on something greater than themselves, whether you want to call that God or spirit or just a higher purpose. All right, so we've looked at both sides. Now let's put them right next to each other, because this is where the parallels become so shocking you just can't ignore them. It turns out they are both describing the exact same spiritual war. I mean, look at this. The parallels are just striking. Fight Club calls modern life a great war of the spirit. The Bible calls attachment to the world idolatry. Fight Club's whole method of destruction, it's a perfect match for the idea of being stripped down, humbled, and emptied. And the end goal? Whether it's finding your pure being or allowing for God's grace, it's two completely different languages describing the exact same journey. And really, if there's one single idea that just perfectly ties these two worlds together, it has to be this quote from Fight Club.
It's the ultimate summary of this whole shared philosophy. It doesn't matter if it's a condo full of furniture or a camel loaded with goods, the message is absolutely identical. Your possessions end up becoming your masters.
So all of this leaves us with a pretty provocative question, one that turns the lens right back on us. Because this isn't just about fictional characters or ancient parables anymore, is it? It's about you. What baggage, and I mean material, emotional, whatever, what baggage are you carrying around? And what do you think might happen if you actually have the courage to unload it, to get on your knees and crawl through to the other side?